Welcome back to This Is a Commander channel, where this is a Commander channel, and today I'm going to be talking about Commander, tough rules, and cool interactions, episode 176. Today's episode is going to be quite the doozy on something that I actually didn't know was an intensely debated thing, but in a video from around a month ago, someone asked me to cover this, and after seeing just how heated the debate over it was, then I knew I'd for sure have to cover it. This episode will be quite dense with rules citation and also some game concepts that you're expected to have a pretty decent knowledge over, so hold on to your butts. Aminatou Veil Piercer is a creature with two abilities, and the one that we care about is her static ability that says each enchantment card in your hand has Miracle. Its Miracle cost is equal to its mana cost reduced by 4 generic mana. The controversy here is involving enchantments with X in their cost, and I'll try to respond to the main points of confusion that I saw pop up from other players. So let's get right into it. First things first, we need to know exactly what Miracle is and what it does, and we can find that in CR 702.94a that says Miracle is a static ability linked to a triggered ability. Miracle cost means you may reveal this card from your hand as you draw it if it's the first card you've drawn this turn. When you reveal this card this way, you may cast it by paying cost rather than its mana cost. So I believe that one of the main points of contention in this is with alternate costs. For example, a card like Omniscience, or Omniscience, that says you may cast spells from your hand without paying their mana costs. One interesting thing about alternate costs is that you cannot combine alternate costs. If you have a Cyclonic Rift in hand, then you cannot use your Omniscience to cast your Overloaded Rift for free because Overload is an alternate cost to pay, and Omniscience is as well. So you must pick one or the other. Another super common alternate cost that we encounter in Commander when you play things for free, especially, is with Cascade. But then there are other common alternate costs that we can see on cards like Bolas' Citadel, which says you may play lands and cast spells from the top of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than pay its mana cost. And that's the part there at the end that says rather than pay its mana cost that should stand out a little bit. The other interesting thing about all these examples of alternate costs that I've mentioned so far in this video is that they all have a conflict with X spells. You can even see on their Scryfall pages, each one's individual Scryfall page, that they have a little rule reminder at the bottom of each one, and you'll see a note about how if you're casting any spells via these cards and effects that if they have an X in their mana cost, that you must choose 0 for the value of X. Let's go to the CR then to see the real true reason for this, and we'll head to section 107.3b that says if a player is casting a spell that has an X in its mana cost, the value of X isn't defined by the text of that spell, and an effect lets that player cast that spell while paying neither its mana cost nor an alternative cost that includes X, then the only legal choice for X is 0. This doesn't apply to effects that only reduce a cost, even if they reduce it to 0. So every time you try to cascade into the Meathook Massacre, or if you want to Omniscience/Citadel it out, it will always be with X equal to 0. If we go back to looking at those Scryfall screenshots, we will also see a little reminder as well about the thing I said earlier in the video about not being able to combine alternate costs. If you Omniscience out your Psych Rift, it will always be to target a single non-land permanent you don't control. You will never be able to Omniscience it overloaded. So why do I bring this up in relation to Aminatou and Miracle? Well, let's take a look at the Scryfall rules notes for Aminatou, and we can see all of them here, and we will see the note about it being an alternative cost, and therefore not combinable with other alternative costs. So clearly, it has the other note that other alternate costs share, right? However, we do not see that X spell note. Maybe it was just left off, forgotten by someone when listing the notes on Gather and Scryfall, or maybe there's more to it than that. Yes, Miracle is an alternative cost, but it isn't just the fact of being an alternative cost that makes X in costs forced to be 0. It's what the alternative is. You're still paying a cost via the alternative cost of Miracle and Aminatou. Specifically, a mana cost is paid through her Miracle with X. I think that some of the confusion was also due to the steps of casting a spell and how it's not until the second step of casting a spell, as noted by CR 601.2b, that we determine the value of an X cost in a spell. So the mindset is that, I believe this is what the mindset is that if we don't know what the value of X is until we're casting the spell and have already moved it to the stack, then how can the miracle cost setting aspect of Aminatou's ability know what to reduce for from X if X is not yet known? Well, magic is weird, that's why. But more to the point, there are other times that the game will look forward towards our intentions. That was a bit of a tongue twister. Forwards towards our intentions. For example, your opponent controls a Void Winnower that says your opponents can't cast spells with even mana values, and even has a nice little reminder that 0 is even. And you have in your hand a Stonecoil Serpent, which costs X. And we know that in the zone of our hand, X is 0, so the Serpent is an even mana card in our hand. Has the Winnower prohibited your ability to cast the Serpent as long as it's out? Luckily, we have CR 601.3a that says if an effect prohibits a player from casting a spell with certain qualities, that player may consider any choices to be made during that spell's proposal that may cause those qualities to change. If any such choices could cause that effect to no longer prohibit that player from casting that spell, the player may begin to cast the spell, ignoring the effect. This means that if you intend to cast that Serpent for X equals 5 or 3 or 7, and those numbers, 5, 3, and 7, being odd numbers, this will make the Serpent spell an odd mana value spell, and then the Winnower will not prohibit you from casting it. Another example of this is with the card Inscription of Abundance. That is an instant with Kicker, and it says to choose 1. If this spell was kicked, choose any number instead. To reference again the steps to casting a spell, we choose our modes of spells before we lock in costs and before we make costs, and Kicker is an additional cost. So how can the game let us pick any number of these modes before knowing if the Kicker has been added as an additional cost and also paid in order for it to be a kicked spell? Well, it can do it because they've added a rule clarifying that we can. And this is found in CR 601.4 that states, while announcing the choices of any modes, alternative costs, and or additional costs as described in Rule 601.2b, some options may be available to a player only if other choices are made that would normally be made later in that rule's instructions. In that case, the spell's controller may consider any other choices to be made in that step. If any such choices could allow them to choose a particular mode, alternative cost, or additional cost, they may do so. Interestingly, this same CR 601.4 also helps with the popular commander Henzie Toolbox Torre that says each creature spell you cast with mana value 4 or greater has Blitz. The Blitz cost is equal to its mana cost. So if you're wanting to cast that Serpent via Blitz, How will the game know that that Serpent, which is a 0 mana creature card while in your hand, will it be a 4 or greater mana value spell when being cast? CR 601.4 is how the game will take your intentions into consideration. It will know that you intend to cast the Serpent for 4 or greater, and therefore it'll let you cast it via Blitz. I do find it strange that they didn't add a rules note of this to Henzie's page about X spells, but they never have. Okay, so I've said a whole lot of stuff so far, but I haven't really given the definitive answer to the question. Does Aminatou's ability actually let you cast your X cost enchantment spells for a value of X minus 4? So let's get into that definitive answer, and yes, she actually does, but maybe you want to understand the why behind it. For that, we will take one final look, kind of final, look at the CR, the comprehensive rules, and head over to section 702.1b that says, an effect that grants an object a keyword ability may define a variable in that ability based on characteristics of that object or other information about the game state. For these abilities, the value of that variable is constantly re-evaluated. So yes, mana cost is indeed a part of an object's characteristics. We know that from CR 109.3, and this means that the game will dynamically update itself on certain things based on changes made over time. One example of this rule is with the card Volcano Hellion, which is a super cool card with a super cool second ability on it, but we're focused on its first ability that says that this creature has Echo X, where X is your life total. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Echo, I don't blame you, as there's only about 51 cards in the game that have Echo, and most cards with it were originally printed in the 90s, mostly around Urza block. Anyhow, it's an upkeep trigger that requires you to pay some sort of cost to keep a permanent, or you must sacrifice the permanent. So let's say that you have 10 life and 15 possible mana that you could produce at that time. And we arrive at your upkeep, and the Echo on the Hellion triggers. You'd currently have to pay 10 mana, because you have 10 life, to keep it around, but while that trigger is on the stack, your opponents cast an instant like Congregate that says target player gains 2 life for each creature on the battlefield. And let's say there's 5 total creatures, so you end up gaining 10 life from that Congregate, going to 20 life. No other responses, and now the Echo resolves, and you must pay an updated cost. The game has re-evaluated that Echo cost to now be 20, and you can only produce 15 mana, and so you must sacrifice your Hellion. So this is how the cost of your Meathook Massacre that is miracled via Aminatou will work. You draw the Massacre, as it's your first card drawn that turn, and reveal it, and the game will assign it an alternative cost even though it doesn't yet know what the X will be when you actually do cast it. It just knows that currently it is black, black, and X minus 4 generic mana. So then, when you move it to the stack and get to the second part of casting a spell in which you choose the value of X, you will pick what value you want it to be. And then when you get to the later step of casting the spell, that is CR 601.2F, and you determine the total cost of the spell, it will see the cost is black, black, and the X that you decided upon, and that X is reduced by 4 generic mana that you don't have to pay when you get to CR 601.2H, which is the step that you pay the total cost of the spell. The game re-evaluated the mana cost characteristic as you moved through all these different parts of casting a spell. Whew! Alright. That was indeed a doozy. This video took a lot of work to make, finding the likely confusing aspects, and if there are any others that I missed, if there's any other confusing aspects, please do put that in the comments below. I do want to help other players understand this kind of thing, because it is really, really confusing. Also, doing the research into the proper rules citation and the cards that I would use as examples, and then writing it all out in a way that hopefully isn't too confusing for most players. This, of course, means that I'm probably going to get almost no views on this video, which is a common trend I see on my more complex and difficult videos. So something I don't normally do is I'm actually going to ask that you guys please share this video. These kinds of effects are not super common right now in the game, but a few years ago we had 0 of these kind of effects, and I imagine that we will only start to see more and more of these effects over the next few years as the game continues to grow. And in the threads that I saw on Reddit and places like Facebook and even Discord, there was a lot of misinformation, lots of wrong answers from people that were very confident and very persistent in their replies and their reasonings. They were providing citation to rules and things that it actually kind of made sense. Even I'm reading it, I'm like, this guy raises a good point. Maybe I did misunderstand. Maybe I misread this part. Maybe I forgot about this one specific rule. So fingers crossed, I am not one of those that was confidently wrong. What I have presented in this video is my interpretation of the magic rules, and they could be wrong. But like those people in the threads and posts, I'm quite confident that I have actually provided the correct result based on the comprehensive rules. And I hope that this video can help guide current players, but also anyone in the future looking for the right answer, especially as these kind of effects come out and are more common, so that they also understand the why behind the answer. You guys have probably noticed that in a lot of my videos. A lot of these videos could be very, very short, like 2-minute videos, if I just explain, like, yes, Aminatou does work, it reduces it by 4. Like, that could be the it of it. I'm ranting now, I'm going off script. But like, that's not the point of this whole channel, of this whole series, is to help you understand the why behind it, to provide that CR citation, to provide other examples, because not every situation is the same as every other situation. The wordings on them can be different. While I've been doing this rant, this closeout, this prologue, or whatever you want to call it, of the video, I've been showing some of the other cards that are kind of like this, with like foretell and things like that. So yeah, there's more of these effects that are going to be coming out over time, and so they're all different in their own little ways. So yeah, whatever. Before I keep going off script more and making this video even longer than it already is, anyhow, that's all I've got for today's episode. As always, I hope that all of you have found this video to be entertaining at least, and I hope that a few of you have even learned something about the crazy, ridiculous, insane rules in this great game of Magic. These crazy rules they can be a headache sometimes, but they're also what makes this game so great. So yeah, have a good one. Ta-ta!